welcome. I'm Tom Laux, Communications Director, City of Marshfield, and it's council preview time. And I have Steve Bark sitting next to me, and we're going to talk about a few things. But first, we're going to talk about the Skywalk and what's happened with that with the clinic. And then we're going to get into the budget, and then we'll get into the council meeting, which takes place on Tuesday, this 26th of October. And just take note, it's at 6 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. Because we finished our budget discussions early, which Steve will talk about. So I'll turn it over to Steve and talk about the clinic.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I want to get people caught up to speed because one of the things I hear when I'm out and about in the community has been what's happening with the Marshfield Clinic and the city. You know, is there a feud going on? I understand that there's been some struggles, and we want to keep you posted. A lot of this is information we can share. So at the last council meeting, there was a revisiting of the lease that was being requested by the clinic to run a skywalk over Oak Avenue from the east wing to the hospital. And this is something they really want to see because it will provide safer transportation for people going from one building to the other without crossing a fairly busy Oak Avenue. And it helps them to improve some of the transport there. And the council had some concerns, and we maybe talked about that a little bit before. But anyway, the council voted at the end of that meeting in favor of allowing the Skywalk lease as amended. There were some revisions done to two of the sections. So now, as I speak today, I believe that the clinic is moving ahead with plans to actually construct that as soon as possible. They've got their contractor back on the job, and you'll see that project happening in the weeks and months ahead. As far as the tax issue, there's a lot of good conversation going on between clinic representatives and city officials. At this point, there's nothing new to report. As we've said before, the clinic is looking for tax exempt status on the east wing property and the main clinic building. The city has not been persuaded at this point that status is deserved from what we know, and the clinic has filed to take this to court. But again, I think we're doing some good relationship building behind the scenes, Tom. Good conversations, not only about that issue and whether or not we can find a resolution without court, but also just communication in general, trying to beef up the amount of interaction we have with officials from the clinic. And the biggest taxpayer, largest employer, and the city need to be working together. And I just want the public to know that that's going on.
Well, thank you, Steve. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what happened on Monday night and the Tuesday before, I think it was, on our budget discussions, correct?
Yeah, Tom, you never know what's going to happen when you go into a budget process. I've been here for 11 years now, and we've had budgets that were almost basically done in the first meeting, and then last year we had 4 meetings that went into November before we were able to reach resolution. This one, it appears we've completed our work with 2 meetings. Now, I say completed our work. There'll still be a public hearing set for Tuesday, November 23rd, and we want your input even between now and then. Please, if you have questions or concerns about what you're hearing, call, write, email, come to a meeting, do something to let your voice be heard about the way we tax and spend here at the city. But at the meeting on Monday night, Tom, the council did come to a tentative agreement on the budget that's going to go to the meeting on the 23rd of November. It includes a 2.5% tax rate increase that would bump us up from $10.25 per thousand to $10.51 per thousand of assessed value. And you might be asking yourself, well, how does that fit with other communities around us? It's almost equivalent to Stevens Point. They're at 1016 right now, and they're proposing to go to 1046. So if both of our budgets are approved, we'll be just a couple of cents away from the same tax rate. Wisconsin Rapids is higher. They've been higher for a while, by more than $1 above us. So we are commensurate with communities in our area. We had a higher tax rate increase last year, and I know some people were hoping we could get it down, closer to maybe 1% or 1.5%. But there's a lot of pressures right now, Tom. I think people at home are feeling inflation from groceries and gas and all the things that they have to buy for their homes. Heating is going to go up, the cost of fuel oil and natural gas. So we're trying to do our best to try and limit expenses, but we were able to hold it in the area of 2.8% general fund expense increase over last year, and that results in a 2.5% increase in the tax rate, which we hope people find acceptable. But again, we welcome any questions or concerns that you might have about that. With that in mind, I think we were able to move forward the things we need to do. Again, our focus is on continuing the programs and services that people like, and maintaining the facilities that we have, the buildings, the streets, to the best of our ability. And the focus is not so much on new programs and services. They usually go to the back of the bus and oftentimes don't make it to the finish line.
All right, so we can expect a public hearing. You said on November 23rd. Will that be a regular council meeting? Is that how that works?
Yeah, it'll be at a regular council meeting at 6 p.m. that night. The meeting will actually begin with a public hearing where people can come to the microphone and say, their piece about good, bad, or otherwise, what they think about the proposal. Which, by the way, please go onto our website and you can take a look at the entire budget. There's a link there that you can look through all the departments and all the proposed changes from 2021. Or you can come in and look at a copy in person, and you might want to give us a heads up so we have one available for you. But yeah, we want your input, and then later in that same meeting, the council will take any input they got from the public, any further thoughts they themselves have had over the past month, and then hopefully, with any changes desired, approve a final budget and tax levy that evening.
All right, well, thank you for that update on both the clinic and our budget process for 2022, and it takes a little load off your shoulders, I think.
It does. It's a crazy period of time in the late summer, early fall, and it does feel good to get to this point. We're not done yet, but at least I think we've done the vast majority of the work.
All right, Steve, here. As everyone knows, I'm multitasking, so if I hit the wrong buttons, I didn't mean to do that.
And you're really doing an amazing job. I don't know that people at home can see what you're doing. Maybe it's better that they can't,
Okay.
but you are doing a lot of multitasking right now, Tom.
Yep, all right, well, back on my camera, and we're going to talk about the agenda. And Steve has highlighted a few items that he'd like us to go over and bring to the public. So let's move right into our agenda for Tuesday. And again, remember 6 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock. Earlier we did advertise 7 because we had thought we'd still be in budget process, but that ended a bit early, which is good. So back to 6 p.m. on Tuesday. Again, it's on TV. You can watch it at 991 as well as those other platforms. Let's talk about this presentation that UWSP. Remember, I believe. We own the buildings, is that right?
We do, along with the county. The city and Wood County are co-owners of the property, and it's a good relationship. It's worked well for 5 decades or more, I think, at this point. And so we're getting an update from representatives from UWSP, Marshfield campus. How are things going? And we try to make this at least annual. In fact, I think we're trying to get closer now to maybe twice a year, because there have been some concerns. Enrollment has been a struggle over time for both our campus and the main campus over in Stevens Point, and the Wausau campus for that matter. So we're going to get an update in terms of how many full-time students do they have, how is their season off to, their school year for 2021-22, and what financial challenges do they have, what improvements are they working on, and the council can ask questions. But this is so important, Tom. We talk about the clinic being very important to our community. Well, how important is the college? For employment, for having an opportunity for young people to plug in and get going on their schooling, and for the vibrancy, the cultural activities that take place over there, concerts and plays. And so we really want to be more in tune with them and really be able to help them where we can, where it's appropriate, and be on the know as what's happening. So we look forward to that report. I'm sure there'll be some questions from council members as to, digging deeper a little bit on what the future holds for the campus. And I'm sure they'll answer as best they can. Michelle Bornke and others over at UW have always been forthcoming, and we'll look forward to that conversation.
Alrighty, and for those that didn't know, it's been UWSP now for what, a couple of years?
Yep, it has been UWSP Marshfield campus rather than used to be called Marshfield Wood County or something. And again, that relationship, I think, is tightening between the main campus and Point and the other 2 campuses. But that raises questions too about what's being planned broader, because the direction comes from beyond our campus, and it's nice to know what's coming around the bend. I'm sure they'll talk about some of the plans to try and introduce new types of courses and majors and to try and deal with the ongoing changes in what the public and what students expect.
Yeah, Steve, college has changed, and I've graduated in '96. Can't believe how long that is ago.
Yeah,
it goes fast.
I graduated in the '80s, and the differences between then and now are striking as far as the expectations of students and their parents, and what could be provided. Of course, the whole thing with technology, are we keeping up with that in terms of meeting our students' needs? That came up a lot during COVID with more remote classes. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of things for the campus representatives to discuss on Tuesday night.
All right, well, we'll look forward to that. And let's move on to our financial audit. Our finance director, Ron Allman, will present that. Tell me what that's about.
Yeah, Ron will actually introduce someone from CLA. There are auditors, and maybe John Troutman or somebody from that firm will present. You know, this is a point where I want our viewers to keep tuned in. I know it doesn't sound very exciting when you talk about audit. Well, you're going to talk about numbers. That'll be great. But this is so important to our financial planning. You know, we talk about our two big things being the budget and the CIP, Capital Improvement Program. This tells us how did we do in depth last year. Normally we get this report, Tom, in the late spring, and we're several months late. We've had some issues we've had to deal with, and that's delayed it by a few months. But CLA will give us a report on how did 2020 end financially. Did we have a surplus? Did we have a deficit? What were the issues that we had to deal with that caused us concern? What do we need to be looking at going forward? Do we need some accounting and financial changes on how we do business? Do we need to look at a number of things? And I'm going to let the cat out of the bag a little bit, if that's okay. For the most part, it was a good year. We had a couple things in our favor, one of which was the snow removal costs were down because we had a mild winter. We had things that were not in our favor. I think most of the people tuned in right now that we had some legal costs that we incurred, large legal costs as a result of issues with the police chief, the mayor, and a former police officer. And so those ate up a lot of expense that we didn't think we would incur in 2021. But all things considered, the year turned out fairly well, and they're going to give us a deeper, more in detail report on Tuesday night. But that'll be important as we go into wrapping up the budget process and then looking ahead to the CIP in early 2022.
All right, 2022.
I know, can you believe it?
No, I can't.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, it goes fast.
It does.
All right, Wildwood Park, a proposed statue presented by our developments, or statues, I should say.
Yeah.
And I've already had quite a bit of information because I was doing the plan commission last night. But let's hear from Steve and see what he has to say on that.
Yeah, Clyde Winia and his wife have run Jurassic Park north of the city limits for a long time. And again, I encourage people, if you haven't been out there, it's a gem. You got to check it out. The sculptures that Clyde has made over the years are just nothing short of amazing. He's a very talented person, a very fun person, and he's been such a tourist attraction for the city for many, many years. Well, he's getting to the point where he's looking at maybe winding down what he does and maybe looking for a home for some of the statues, a place that people can enjoy them on a regular basis more often than they would out at his place where he won't be giving his tours anymore. And so the Wildwood Park area has come up as a possible location. So there have been conversations for a while between city officials, some volunteers who were involved in this project, and Clyde, and trying to figure out how this might work. And it's been through the Park and Recreation Committee. The Plan Commission heard it the other night, and they probably had a few questions, but now the council is going to receive a presentation, and we're going to get their feedback on whether they think this is a good thing, if they have concerns or ideas that they want to throw into the hopper. But I really think this will be a blessing ultimately when this comes to pass, Tom, because it'll be an opportunity for more people to see these works of art than probably have seen them in the past, even though I know it's been a frequented tourist attraction, like I said, for many years.
Well, Marshfield's lucky to have it, is what I heard last night. Brings in over $1 million to the area for tourism, I heard, from the Plan Commission. As I know, they're very supportive of it, as is the Parks and Recreation Committee. So that's what will be brought forward to the council. And there was a really good presentation last night, and I'm sorry I don't remember the individual's name, but if anyone wants to watch it, just look and find when our Plan Commission runs or watch it online. You'll listen to a good 20, 25, 30-minute discussion on the plans. That'll give everyone a good update, and I thought that was done well last night.
I didn't see it, but I think it might have been Mark Nelson. Maybe, yeah. He's going to probably be part of the presentation to the council on Tuesday night. And just to let people know, we're going to talk about the word presentation in a minute because that's part of another agenda item. But the idea is there's no action expected or requested. This is get familiar with it, ask questions. The council will be asked in early November to give its blessing to move this project forward. But this is really just to familiarize everybody with what's being discussed and the benefits it would bring to our community.
Yeah, and I'm hearing that right now the move wouldn't cost any money that's been raised, which is good. So, but I won't say any more because that'll be a decision of the council and others. And we'll hear it as you said, just informational only, nothing that's going to be decided, correct?
Correct. And behind the scenes, there's always things being looked at, like insurance and liability and all those types of things. So don't think we're not dotting our I's and crossing our T's, but we are getting excited about this prospect.
All right, let's move into another piece first that talks, not talking about meeting, but talking about taxi fares, because that affects a lot of our viewers here too.
It really does, Tom, and you've done a great job of getting the publicity out, getting the word out about this, so people have a chance to weigh in. But it's not done yet. You know, the council is going to vote on this on Tuesday night. So if you have thoughts on the taxi fares or concerns about the increase, you know, we'd like to hear it sooner rather than later. What's being proposed is a fairly tame increase, we think. The last time taxi fares were increased was in 2018, and they were bumped up at that time a little bit to $2.85 for people. This is a reduced fare now. This is for people who are seniors, persons with disabilities. They get a lower rate than the regular fares. So it would go from $2.85 to $3 per ride, a 15-cent increase. And again, I don't want to minimize that because, you know, the economy is tight and people are affected by any rise in prices. But we think it's appropriate, and we need this additional revenue to kind of mitigate between the cost of the service and the amount that's covered by fares and grants, so that the city itself is not paying you know, a growing share of the cost. And you know, but like I said, we look forward to hearing from people. There's also something called an agency fare paid for by human service organizations that provide rides in bulk to, you know, some people in the home health care area especially. And that would go from $8 to $10 a ride. Those folks generally, the companies I mean, are able to recoup money through other means for those costs, and that really hasn't been an issue in the past. The main focus of Tuesday night, I would think if you're tuned into us right now, is whether or not the $3 reduced fare is appropriate.
Okay, so that's all that'll be discussed is really the change in the rate and nothing to do with how the service operates, because that's a shared ride and that is done by our contractor, is that correct?
It is, but we're in the process of renewing for another year with our contractor from Baroqua. It's running incorporated. And I continue to encourage people, if you have any questions or concerns, I know it comes up, the whole share ride thing. You know, how come they picked somebody up on the way taking me to the clinic or something? That's part of what shared ride is about. But you might have questions about other things with the taxi service, what hours they run, you know, problems maybe you've had or you've encountered. You know, please feel free to contact the city. We're kind of the go-between in some cases to make sure that the service is meeting the needs of our consumers.
All right, so they can reach out to anyone here at the city, or reach
Yeah,
out
you can reach out to me, and I'd be glad to plug them in with the right folks to get their concern addressed, Tom.
All right, sounds good. Let me get back to my camera here for everyone can see me. Let's talk about, you're putting something back on the council to do with closing at noon on Fridays. What is that about?
Well, this is really a procedural thing, and it's an interesting thing to talk about. Back on September 14th, after our 4-week trial period of closing at noon on Fridays to the public, I came out and I gave a report. And what it said on the agenda that night was, receive report on our 4-week trial period for summer hours, presented by Steve Barg, and the recommended action was none. It's for information only. In fact, we have 3 items on this agenda, Tom, that are the same thing. Presentation, and the action is for information only. Nothing expected from the council. Well, that night after the presentation, we had some conversation about the benefits and whether we had complaints about the Friday hours. We really weren't getting complaints about Friday hours, and the council started saying, you know what, people are doing business more remotely than they used to, and you know, this is probably a good benefit for our employees, and also we can still meet our needs. The employees will still be working 40 hours a week. You know, they just have to make their hours work within that framework of the revised schedule. They thought it was such a good thing that they said, let's do this year round. And they made and approved a motion, 8-2, I believe it was, to that effect. Well, here we are, a month later, we're doing Friday hours again. We're closing City Hall to the public at noon, and we're still not getting a lot of complaints or concerns raised. But I did get one soon after this started from someone who said, wait a minute, I have a lot of questions and concerns, and I couldn't have known that you were going to talk about year-round Friday hours, because the agenda didn't say that. The agenda just said, review the experience from the trial period and, no information or no action at all, just information only. How could I have known that? Well, we ran this past the city attorney, and the city attorney said that what the city council did was not unlawful in any way, shape, or form, but it might be a good idea, given the way this went down, to bring it back again and let the public know and say that we're going to consider ratifying the decision made back on September 14th. Do you have any concerns? And I've mentioned to this one person that it's going to be coming, and I think that individual is planning on coming to the podium during public comment to express some of their thoughts and concerns about the Friday hours. So it's really more about, in some ways, a housekeeping thing, but it's really more than that. You work really hard, I know, in your department to inform people what can they expect from our government, what are we going to do and when. And so I think it was a good point that a person looking at the agenda probably couldn't have realized how far that discussion was going to go. So I'm not necessarily expecting anything to change or not change in the final decision, but procedurally, the city attorney recommended that we bring it back to see if the council would ratify it.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens on that meeting coming on the 26th, which is this upcoming Tuesday, as we're taping this about a week before. Well, that comes to the end, I believe, of the items you have. Steve, anything else? Otherwise, we're good.
Not really. In a way, Tom, it's kind of like taking a little bit of a breath after the back-to-back budget meetings, and we'll get back to the business at hand again here. There'll probably be more items on the November agendas.
All right. Well, thank you so much for providing myself as well as the public this information. You guys can tune in on Tuesday night, the 26th of October, 6 p.m. will be our next Common Council meeting, the last of the month. And then we're going to be getting closer to those holiday times, and I'm sure we'll be discussing those as that happens. Otherwise, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I'm Tom Lotz, Communications Director for the City of Marshfield, and Steve Barker, City Administrator, sitting next to me. Thanks again.